Thought I'd make a YouTube video to address these Q&A questions because it would just take way too long to fit in a reel. It's probably quite a shock how I managed to get into the hardline, and honestly it's a big shock for me as well. Yeah, here's my hardline race plate. I also got this hardline bucket hat, which I'm pretty stoked on. Yeah, this hat's pretty sick. Would I risk my life again for this hat? Probably yes. I just realized that it might rain here. Anyway, I posted a video last night, 17 hours ago. Thought I'd put it on my YouTube channel and start getting some long form videos out and get my channel back into action and not just have the social channels like Instagram and TikTok being the main ones. So here we are. Quick introduction on who I am. My name's Sascha Kim. I'm 21 years old. I'm a student and I'm a Giant Bicycles global ambassador. I used to do Enduro World Cup racing, but now I'm pretty much just a wannabe content creator, pretty much. Favorite feature and least favorite feature, and would you do it again? Coolest feature to me was the cliff drop. Even though it's not the biggest feature, it's so technical and kind of satisfying to do because you have to do this technical run in and then pop off and then get this pretty short landing into a turn, which then sets you up for a sick jump. And would I do it again? If this is referring to hardline, yes. If there was an opportunity to do hardline Tasmania again and the course didn't change much, I probably would want to do it again. It was so much fun, although it was so terrifying as well. Question, did you ever think you'd be lining up with Sam Hill? How was that? Gwyn too. Yeah, honestly, it was so unreal to be lining up with Sam and Aaron, and so many other pros that I looked up to. But Aaron Gwyn and Sam Hill were probably some of my biggest idols. Definitely Sam. He had such an impact on me as a kid growing up. I remember Sam Hill came to Medina Bike Park earlier on and there was a race on and he did his race run as his first blind lap and just won and bet everyone. I think Dan Booker was there and I was in like under 15s at the time. And I remember coming 15 seconds off him in his race run, even though it was his first run and he was probably cruising. I was just so stoked, over the moon, like 15 seconds behind Sam Hill. And this is when he was dominating in the Enduro World Series. But anyway, I was buzzing. I remember taking a photo of Sam back then. And then now to be riding with him at Hardline, that was just so cool. And he is such a legend. Fun fact, he also let me borrow his spare downhill frame when he was having a crack at the Downhill World Cups in 2023. That was, yeah, really nice of him to lend me his downhill. And Aaron Gwyn as well. I remember following Aaron Gwyn into the road gap actually at the bottom. I don't think he realized, I just dropped in behind him. But yeah, super cool guy. And yeah, it was just insane to be riding with all these superstars. What rider gave you the most support? I had some similar questions to this one, like who was your favorite rider? Which rider did you lean on to the most? There wasn't any specific rider that I leaned on to the most, but it was definitely the other Aussie riders who were my friends that I leaned on, obviously. It was just so sick to see they were in hardline as well, and most of us were doing this for the first time. It was such a cool environment, especially that first day of practice when everyone is just helping everyone to get through the course. Would love to see full behind the scenes with accommodation, pits, etc. I don't have too much footage of all the behind scenes stuff, only mainly in the pits. Pretty much we all shared dinner together, we all had lunches together. It didn't mean we're at the same table together, but you could choose to eat together. It was super cool though. Red Bull completely looked after us with everything. So the whole week was covered, which included accommodation, food, support, mechanics, physio, which is crazy. I wish I utilized all the services. I really should have taken up that physio for my hands and arms. They had saunas, which I didn't use. If you could remove one part of the track, which would it be? This is a tricky one because I don't think any part could be removed. It's just perfect how it is. If it was at the start of the weeks, I'd say remove the whoops, but afterwards the whole track is so sick, nothing needed to change in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to head to TikTok because there's a couple more over there. You'll get the chance in Wales, bro. Are you going to ride Red Bull Hardlines in Wales? Okay, lots of questions about this. Honestly, if there was an opportunity to ride Red Bull Hardline Wales, I don't know if I'd get an invite into Hardline Wales, but if I did, I might consider it. Who knows? Why Jackson Goldstone was riding so slow? Maybe you know the real reason. You're the best. One day you will win hardline. Okay. I've got no idea why Jackson was riding slow, and he definitely wasn't. I do think he had some crashes in practice just before seeding, so that obviously wouldn't have helped, but no, he definitely wasn't riding slow. Thanks for saying I might win Hardline one day, but at this rate, I think that's well out of reach, but I appreciate it anyway. It's funny. Can you go on the trail when you want, or are there times when you can and can't? No, you definitely can't go on the trail whenever you want. Only during the official practice you can ride the Hardline course. This is because they need medics like everywhere on standby and course marshals all over the track, because if something goes wrong, usually it's a pretty life-threatening injury, and so you need medics on you ASAP. And so we even had a chopper in on the first day. I think that was because of Millie's crash. Yeah, no, you can't just ride it whenever you want. Definitely don't want to be doing those features alone. But there is 0.05% of the track available to the public on the express lane part of the track, so you can technically ride a little bit of the track during public riding hours. How much was it? I had a similar question, which was asking me if I got paid, but this one's asking how much was it. The event costed nothing, and whether or not I got paid, no, I did not. All the other riders did get paid. There's like an appearance fee. But because I was a wild card and it was last minute, I don't know, it was worth it for the bucket hat, I guess. But if I had won seeding or I'd won the race, then I would have gotten some prize money. But no pay, just in it for the love of the game, I guess. How on earth do you gather the courage to do that road gap? Yeah, the road gap is honestly no joke, and it was probably the scariest feature because it was the first main feature we had to do on the first practice day. When you stand on the road gap, you're just staring into trees and the abyss. I just can't describe how scary that is. The only way you are able to do it is if you commit and just send it. So that was really hard to overcome, I guess, a mental challenge of doing the road gap. But once I had done it, then it was okay. Then it was like, okay, it's not so bad. It's built so well that if you just trust yourself, you'll be okay. But yeah, really mentally challenging at first, the road gap. Also, when I landed the road gap first time, I landed with no brakes and just death gripped into that, cannon launcher. And that was the scariest thing. I've got a raw, live reaction video on my Instagram of that video, and I was just off my head. I was going crazy. That was just insane. Future Red Bull sponsor. Oh, that would be the dream, but no, we don't send enough to get a Red Bull sponsor. How insane would that be? That would be like full peak childhood dream, Red Bull sponsor. No, one can still dream. One can dream. How you got the wild card? Okay, I got quite a few questions about how I got the wild card. And yeah, when I posted that video the day before track walk, I was being real. I made that video on that day and shared it as live as I could. And that was literally when I found out. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. I know some people probably think like, oh, you probably knew before you were getting into Hardline, but you just wanted to make it, more of a crazy build up. But no, that was all real and all real time. The real story was I went to Medina about a week before Hardline to do some riding, and I found out some of my mates, along with Will Hines, who had done Hardline previously, that they were also getting into Hardline, and I was thinking, man, I don't really want to be watching Hardline for the third year as a spectator, and I thought if there's any chance of me being able to get in, I'd try. So I ended up asking Simon French, who owns Medina, and luckily I've been an ambassador there since it pretty much opened, so I've been very close with him in Medina for a long time. And so I pretty much asked him if there was ever a chance I'd be able to get into Hardline practice or whatever, can you let me know? And yeah, I told him that, and then I didn't hear anything really until the day before the event, and that's literally, when I found out. So yeah, there wasn't really any heads up. I do think I may not have gotten that spot if my friend Jed Stanton didn't have a crash. Unfortunately, my good Aussie friend Jed Stanton had a crash a couple days before Hardline, and yeah, that took him out for the race. He's okay, but just recovering. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that was a factor into me getting into Hardline, but it was a really late last minute call, I can tell you that. Yo dude, Hardline is a dream of mine. What have you done throughout your career to get the last second call up, and what would you recommend to get there? Okay, really good question, and I guess there would be so many ways to get into it, but if I'm going from my background, I would recommend do racing, because racing is pretty much the key to anything in mountain biking. And if you can't race, you need to be really good at social media or doing mad tricks on the bike. Please ride for your whole life. Okay, we'll try and do that one. What age did you start to do MTB, and when did you start to race? I started mountain biking when I was around 12 and 13 years old. Yeah, I got into racing around that time as well. I guess after I picked up the bike, I was like, this is so sick. What's next? Are there any races? Can I try and race? And then I got into cross-country racing because I didn't know downhill and enduro existed at the time. But after finding out downhill and enduro was a discipline, I started doing more of that. And yeah, we kind of ditched the XC. But it's pretty funny. I did an XC National as my second ever mountain bike race, and I remember doing it in flat pedals. And that was, yeah, pretty wild. Do you respond? Well, we're responding here on the YouTube. Bro, you did good at Hardline. Watched it. Good run. Thanks. How did you get to Hardline? Already answered that one. So proud of you. Thank you. First, would you do it again? Would you do it again? Like I said, if the course was the same, I would want to do Red Bull Hardline Tasmania again. Wales is a different question. Why was it cancelled? Yeah, unfortunately, it rained heaps on race day and it just wasn't possible to clear the bottom jumps. The jumps are built right to the limit of what's possible on a bike, which means, yeah, you could build them slightly smaller so you could race them if it was wet, but then they wouldn't be built to the limit and it wouldn't be hardline because it's not progressing the sport to hardline standards, I guess. And yeah, no riders would have been able to make it through and there would have been a lot of injuries. So yeah, rider safety came first, which was a good move in the end. Even though it sucked for everyone, it was better to stay alive than die. Yo, would like to get a sign on my helmet from you, but I can't go there. It's too expensive, but you are my idol. Thank you. Who knows? Maybe we can meet up again at another race. You never know. I loved watching you and I saw myself in one of your vids. Any chance I could get a follow back? Always congrats, bro. Hope to see you there next year. Look, thanks heaps and thanks for coming out in person. It really means a lot coming out to these races and cheering on from the sidelines. Regarding a follow back, I got asked this question so much and I feel bad saying no, but I feel like I'd have to follow everyone if I followed someone. Just at random. Look, if you keep shredding on a bike, I might just see you on my For You page or whatnot, and I might have a real reason to follow you then. Okay, going to head to YouTube to try and wrap this up, because I've been yapping for way too long. Looks like a lot of fun, except for the terrifying parts, lol. What was the hardest part of the track to get over? Okay, I'm going to say road gap or the cliff drop or the creek gap. Oh, there's just too many parts that I had to get over. The hardest part was once you got over one feature, like the road gap, you just have to disregard that feature and then focus on the next one. Everyone, including myself, was just so scared to do the road gap. But after that, it's like, okay, road gap's done. We need to do the creek gap. And then the creek gap became the scariest thing. So that was really hard. There wasn't a specific feature that stayed the scariest, but it was a feature that you were dealing with in the present moment that became the scariest in that moment. Otherwise, yeah, the creek gap was pretty scary every time because you just don't know if you have the speed to hit it every time. You really do not want to case the creek gap, I can tell you that. Sascha, are you going to compete next Hardline or is that it for you? Well, like I said, if there's a race in Tasmania again, I will try and do it if I can get invited. If there's one in Wales, we'll see. But look, I'm young. Riders like Sam Hill and Aaron Gwynn, who are close to 40 years old, are still doing Hardline, which is just crazy. I'm just 21, so I probably will be doing some more hectic stuff like this. But all I can say is that I've got my airtime sorted for this year, and I don't think I'll have to catch up on any lost airtime. What do you do to get to that kind of level of riding? I also already answered this one, but I guess just following the natural progression of the sport and enjoying it, because if you don't enjoy it, what's the point in doing it? So start with local races, then go to national races, and then just, yeah, keep trying to get better and one-up yourself. Try and get sponsors, try and grow a social following to help with getting sponsors and get support to get to races. How was the Red Bull team? Like, were they pushing you to do features or were they letting you go at your own pace? No, the Red Bull team was super supportive. They were letting riders just completely go at their own pace, which was super cool. You know, lots of the pro riders actually didn't complete the final course until the seeding day. Because there was lots of wind throughout the week, we had to focus on doing the jumps at certain time periods when the wind wasn't so strong. And there wasn't that much opportunity to be able to complete the entire course before seeding due to the wind. There's definitely no pressure. Only pressure we had was, it's a pressure that I put on myself because, you know, I want to do the features. No one's telling me to do them. I want to do them, and I'm sure all the other riders feel the same way. I guess the only slight bit of pressure was on the qualifying day because you have to do a full run top to bottom by yourself to get into qualifying. So that was like a bit scary, but again, that's obvious because if you can't do a full run top to bottom, they're not going to let you on the broadcast do a full run and, I don't know, die. So yeah, but no, super supportive. Yo, why was Hardline cancelled and how did they get scoring? Scoring was based off everyone's qualifying results. So this was Saturday's seeding results. Yeah, which I got 16th in, which I'm pretty stoked when, you know, it's out of like 30 riders. It's kind of mid-pack, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, well off the pace, but yeah, pretty stoked on that. What is the best way to get to this level? Should I be getting my name out in racing or building up a socials following or both? This is a really good question And I can't stress enough how important social media is. And I wish I knew this earlier, but I guess I didn't really understand how sponsors worked when I was younger. I just thought it was cool to get a sponsor and you just get free stuff. But you really have to be bringing these sponsors value. And the best way to do that is on social media and having an online presence. Unless you're, winning races, it's really hard. I know there's social media bans these days, so try and get your parents to help. Yeah, definitely get the socials pumping. That's at least what I'm trying to do. It's the best way to get sponsors and get support and get noticed. Okay, it's really starting to rain now, so I'm going to try and wrap this up quickly. Did you get to meet all the Red Bull athletes? I'm curious to know how they were as people. Did you drop in and hang around only people you knew, or did you get the opportunity to go and eat lunch with Jackson Goldstone? I had the opportunity to meet whoever and have lunch and dinner with whoever. But at the end of the day, I just hung around the people that I was closest with, which were the Aussie riders. And so I generally would just eat lunch and dinner with them. Yeah, I'm pretty shy. I'm not that outgoing, so I don't really, when you've got all these pro riders, it's pretty scary, at least for me, just to be all casual about everything. Although everyone is super chill. When did you start MTB? Oland to Fox? How to join Red Bull? Honestly, getting into Hardline, I actually have no idea how the riders really get into Hardline. My situation was just a bit of luck, pretty much. Yeah, there's no real clear pathway. Just send it on the bike and who knows? Bit of a hard one, that one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how fun is it? Okay, it's definitely a 10 out of 10 on the fun factor, but it's also a 10 out of 10 on the scary factor. Look, I'm going to call it. The Red Bull Hardline Tasmania track is the sickest downhill track out there, in my opinion. Starting off at the start gate with a hectic drop and just going into some insane tech, followed by some huge features, an epic flow highway section, supercross section, and just these mega jumps at the bottom. I don't think anything can really top this track. Every time I'm going in to drop in, I'm kind of fearing for my life, but while I'm riding it, I'm like, this is the sickest track ever. So yeah, a bit of a tricky one. It's a 10 out of 10 on all scales. Are you going to drop out of school? Well, I don't think the parents will be too happy hearing that one. No, I'm going to try and stay in school and try and keep riding my bike and ride my bike a bit more this year. I'm pretty fortunate to have support from Giant while at university. And yeah, I'm going to definitely try and not drop out. But who knows, if there's an epic opportunity that just comes into my hands, I probably would take it. Especially in this day and age, AI is going to take over my job. Yeah, look, if an insane opportunity ever arose, I might take it, but not going to try and drop out of uni. Okay, that's most of the questions wrapped up, and it's getting pretty cold and wet here. Let me know if you like this sort of video and if you want to see more long form videos. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any other questions or want to see some other type of content. Otherwise, yeah, this is going to be the first YouTube video out on my channel in years, which is pretty crazy. And it might be the last, but yeah, we'll see. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I really appreciate all the support throughout the Hardline week. It was so crazy. I still have so many messages that I need to get back to. Yeah, it was pretty overwhelming. My brain is pretty fried from the whole week. It was just so insane on so many different levels. But yeah, that's Hardline out. And yeah, peace out. There's a cut.